Good morning, friends. Good morning. It is Monday morning, another day, another week, another Monday. Wonderful to be here with you. Wonderful to have you here with me on this glorious day. It's um, decently sunny outside, and temperatures are lovely out there. Of course, I am always worried when we get stuff like this in the beginning of March. I'm always concerned that the other shoe is going to drop. Saw a pretty cool meme. It said, "But winter is over," and Pennsylvania replies, "What about second winter?" It's a Lord of the Rings reference. But yeah, second winter might be just around the corner rather than spring being around the corner. Anyway, that's not what we're here for. We're here for another episode of PB Reads the Bible. I'm PB. I'm Pastor Brian, pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church, and you're here with me on our journey through the Bible, and we are on episode 15 on our journey through the book of Judges, and this is the 11th. Yep, 11th book of the Bible that we've gone through. Still a lot more to go, but that puts us 1/5 of this. Will put us 1/5 of the way through the Bible. 20%. We'll have 20% of the Bible done, right? No, I'm sorry, not 1/5. 1/6. 1/6 of the Bible will be done when we're done with this, which would be about 17% of the way through the Bible after finishing this one. Based on books of the Bible, of course, based on chapters or verses, we're not even close to that, because Psalms has 150 chapters and Isaiah has 66 chapters, and so we're much less than 17% of the way through if you looked at it from that point of view. That's a cool thing about statistics and numbers. So much of it does depend on what you're looking for. Just water, trying to stay hydrated and make sure that I don't dry out too much as I'm talking, which I'm doing a lot of already this morning. So anyway, go ahead and check in. Let me know who you are. I mean, I see that we've got people watching or tuning in, but I don't see any responses yet. So romper room roll call. Who's out there? Hi, John. Good to have you with us this morning. Of course, you can also send me a text, 570-351-1619. Same thing for questions or comments. Put them in the comments section of the stream here, or send me a text. So when I'm looking to my left, I'm checking the computer screen. When I'm looking to my right, I'm checking because my phone vibrated or something like that. And good to stay connected and stay in touch with you. Oh, good. There, now we go. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Maureen. Still in Orlando. How's sunny Orlando? Good for you. Good for you. Good morning, Cheryl. Yeah, it's decently sunny out there this morning, but clouds I think are going to increase because we're supposed to get rain this afternoon here in the Waynesboro area. And watch out for those winds, folks. Sounds like they're going to be nasty this evening, overnight, all that stuff. So careful when you're driving. All right. I did want to check my calendar, but pretty sure that we're good to go for the rest of this week without any kind of interruptions. I'm just going to quick check here. Yep, nothing. So we're good on that. That part's A-okay. So we'll be here tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. Same time, same bat time, same bat channel. And they will all be live. We'll be live all this week. Monday and Tuesday of next week, we will not be live. I will either be doing videos or not having it, but probably doing videos for you if we can. But they will not be live sessions for sure. I have 2 all-day meetings for the conference for Boom. So enough announcement stuff. Enough announcement stuff. Let's get into this, right? As we work on our discipleship through Bible study, what we talked about yesterday in worship, right? All right. So we're on to chapter 15. Oh, good morning, Marcia. Almost missed that. Sometimes Facebook doesn't tell me right away. And of course, sometimes too, I just miss things as I look. But good morning, Marcia. So we're on chapter 15, and we're in the middle of the story of Samson. We read a couple chapters involving Samson and learned something about his character and why he was not a good judge. He was a failure as a judge. And so we're going to see more of those things. Sometimes we kind of idolize his story, and we just think about his strength, and we think about the end of the story, but we miss so much when we do that. So slowing down and going through here and picking things apart a little bit, we're seeing more of what the author intended when they share this story about Samson and how he was not a good judge. He was the last judge for a reason, because he was not good. All right. After a while, at the time of the wheat harvest, Samson went to visit his wife, bringing along a kid. He said, "I want to go into my wife's room." But her father would not allow him to go in. Her father said, "I was sure that you had rejected her, so I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister prettier than she? Why not take her instead?" So pause. So if you remember from last week, at the conclusion of it all, Samson killed a whole bunch of people, burned down town, whatever, and he stormed off in a huff, leaving behind his new bride. And it even said there at the end of 14 that the father then gave her to Samson's best man. So the father is relaying that part of the story to Samson. And everything, it actually seems to be, it would be considered legal, like what the father did, and it was the right thing to do, to try to save face and embarrassment from having the groom storm off like that. It's almost as if he rejected her, and so the father needs to provide for her and save face. So he gives her as a bride to somebody else. Samson said to them, "This time, when I do mischief to the Philistines, I will be without blame." Pause. The fact that Samson says it in this fashion sounds like, although he doesn't say it, Samson admits that he overreacted, and the things he did last time he shouldn't have done. This time, when I do mischief, I'll be without blame. But last time I should be blamed for what I did. That's the unspoken, but sort of in there. You see what I mean by that? This time. Anyway, continuing. So Samson went and caught 300 foxes and took, pause. I should have gone back to those first few words. Remember those first few words. It's the time of the wheat harvest. So the wheat is fully grown, all set to go. All set to be harvested, all set to be cut down and used. All right, all set to be cut down and used. It's too late in the season to start to try to regrow. So picking up again, verse 4. So Samson went and caught 300 foxes and took some torches. And he turned the foxes tail to tail and put a torch between each pair of tails. When he had set fire to the torches, he let the foxes go into the standing grain of the Philistines and burned up the shocks and the standing grain, as well as the vineyards and olive groves. Pause. Okay. So that's total destruction for their livelihood and for their sustenance. We're talking about a time when, in particular, wheat bread, that is life. That is life. We spoke about that a couple weeks ago, right, in our worship. Without that bread, how do you continue to live, and how do you move forward? and Samson is destroying it all. And it's late in the season, so they can't start over again. There's also echoes here back to Gideon. Back to Gideon. Remember, Gideon started with a huge army. He had gathered together all this army as a judge should do, as a good judge should do. Gathered together all the army, but God whittled it down to 300 people. Right? Samson goes and gets 300 foxes because Samson is working alone. He's not working with tribes. He's not uniting the people the way the good judges were able to do. He's doing it all his own. So, but the 300 warriors, 300 foxes. Now, what did all the warriors had? They all had torches that they used to shock and awe the army of the Canaanites or Ammonites that they were going up against. And he also uses torches for the purpose of destroying the wheat and the vineyards and the olive groves. Okay, but we hear those echoes. He's using things very similarly, or he's using very similar things and numbers compared to good judges, but he's using them in a bad way. And what is this? What does this purpose serve? What purpose does this serve? It doesn't serve any except to assuage his ego. He feels, insulted, and so he's all about seeking vengeance. He's all about seeking vengeance, as the last couple judges kind of also did. We saw that progression, that they were more concerned with self and with vengeance and ego and reputation. Then the Philistines, picking up verse 6, then the Philistines asked, "Who has done this?" And they said, "Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken Samson's wife and given her to his companion." So the Philistines came up and burned her and her father. Samson said to them, "If this is what you do, I swear I will not stop until I have taken revenge on you." So again, Samson still loves this woman, even though she had kind of betrayed him earlier, and even though her father had given her away. And so when the Philistines came and killed her, burned, perhaps even at a stake kind of thing, her and her father, he says, "I'm going to have to take revenge on you." He struck them down hip and thigh with great slaughter, and he went down and stayed in the cleft of the rock of Etam. Now, the NRSV keeps that literal translation of hip and thigh. The NIV just says that he attacked them viciously. But those words, he struck them down hip and thigh, describes how vicious his attacks were. Gives the intimation, the context, or not context, but gives that intimation, gives that idea that he is quite literally cutting them limb from limb, cutting them to pieces. He's brutal. He's brutal. Then the Philistines came up and encamped in Judah and made a raid on Lehi, or Lehi. Remember Judah. Judah is the number one tribe of Israel. When we go back to the early stories in the book of Judges, Judah is the leader. They're the tribe that like first to war, first to battle, the first ones. They're right there to come to the aid of the other tribes and stuff like that. They're willing to fight against their oppressors. We're now going to see how far Judah has fallen. We might say the last good tribe of Israel, the last faithful tribe of Israel. We're going to see how far they've fallen in relationship to the other tribes. So I'm going to start again on verse 9. Then the Philistines came up and encamped in Judah and made a raid on Lehi. the men of Judah said, "Why have you come up against us?" They said, "We have come up to bind Samson, to do to him as he did to us." Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock of Etam, and they said to Samson, "Do you not know that the Philistines are rulers over us? What then have you done to us?" Pause. So not only is Judah does not take the call to go to war, basically. They're not willing to fight against their oppressors. They go to Samson and say, "This is horrible what you've done. These are our rulers. They're not supposed to be your rulers. This is terrible what you've done to us." But not only that, they're going to give him up to them. Continuing, he replied, "As they did to me, so have I done to them." They said to him, "We have come down to bind you, so that we may give you into the hands of the Philistines." Samson answered them, "Swear to me that you yourselves will not attack me." They said to him, "No, we will only bind you and give you into their hands. We will not kill you." Well, so they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. Pause. Well, not knowing what's going to happen next, they're kind of lying when they say, "We're not going to kill you," because they're going to be responsible for his death. Presumably, Samson is going to be killed by all these Philistines. So them saying, "We're not going to kill you." Well, not by your hand, but by your hand, because you're going to tie him up and take him there. When he came to Lehi, the Philistines came shouting to meet him, and the Spirit of Yahweh rushed on him, and the ropes that were on his arms became like flax that has caught fire, and his bonds melted off his hands. Then he found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, reached down and took it, and with it he killed 1,000 men. Pause. So Spirit of God rushed upon him, and he's able to defend himself and kills 1,000 Philistines. But notice how he touches something that was dead. So once again, he breaks his Nazirite vow of not touching a carcass, not touching something that's dead. And he picks up this jawbone of a donkey and kills 1,000 men with it. And then what does he do? He boasts. With the jawbone of a donkey, and Samson said, "With the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey, I have slain 1,000 men." When he had finished speaking, he threw away the jawbone, and that place was called Ramoth Lehi, or Lehi, not sure how that's supposed to be pronounced. Pause. So he goes boasting about it. He doesn't praise God, doesn't say anything about that. We're not even sure if he knows that the Spirit of Yahweh has rushed upon him and helped him at this time and before as well. We don't know that, because he doesn't seem to. He just thinks he's doing all this all on his own, and he's bragging about it. And his brag has echoes back to Genesis chapter 4 with Lamech, talking about how great and important he is. It's also for us an echo, but for them almost a precursor to David and the boasting and bragging that, well, not necessarily him, but the people make about him. "Oh, Saul's killed his thousands, but David has killed his 10,000s," which David ends up believing all that stuff about himself. Anyway, continuing, verse 18, "By then he was very thirsty, and he called on Yahweh, saying, 'You have granted this great victory by the hand of your servant.'" Pause. So even there, he says God granted him it by the hand of your servant. He doesn't acknowledge God's power or God doing anything in it other than granting it, other than allowing it to happen. "Am I now to die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?" So this is the first time that we see him calling out to God for help, calling out to God for help. And he hasn't done that yet. This is the first time that he's called out to God for help. Now, in a way, in this point in particular, remember I said I said that on Thursday, I said in the last chapter, we can kind of see some similarities between Samson and Samson's love for his wife and his future love for Delilah. In a way, we can see God's love for unfaithful Israel. Doesn't mean that Samson is a metaphor for God, because more closely or more truly, Samson is a metaphor for Israel. And so here, rather than crying out for deliverance, we see him crying out for help for himself. We see him crying out for help for himself, but he still is kind of like Israel, how Israel cried out for deliverance, cried out for help from God. And so he is crying out for help from God. Continuing, so God split open the hollow place that is at Lehi, and water came from it. So he split a rock open. When he drank, his spirit returned and he revived. Therefore it was named En-Hakkore, which is at Lehi to this day. And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. Pause. Oh, actually, end of chapter, right? I believe that's the end of the chapter. Yes, it is. That's the end of chapter 15. We'll turn to 16 tomorrow. Now, I know I said he's not a good judge and he doesn't deliver Israel. And he doesn't deliver Israel. The author doesn't say that he delivered Israel. Does not say that he delivered Israel from his oppressors. What does the author say here? It says that he judged Israel for 20 years in the days of the Philistines. So he judged Israel, but he didn't deliver Israel. Notice what else the author does not say. Does not say that there was rest in the land, which for all the good judges, that took place. The judge delivered Israel, and Israel had rest. That's not there. That's not there. Will it be there? You'll have to tune in tomorrow and succeeding days to see if that ever does happen. Anyway, my friends, that's going to be it for today. That's it for chapter 15. I do pray that this has been beneficial for you, that you've learned something or relearned something, that God has spoken to you through some way, through something I've said, something we've read together. As you go about your days, not just today, but every day, keep those eyes and ears, physical and spiritual, open to what God is doing in your life and in the lives of those around you. When you see it, when you hear it, tell somebody about it. And thank God for doing it. Until we meet again.